and tack it over. So if you'd like to take a seat on the end. All right, guys, we're going to switch gears here to the hydrogen panel, and as you may have noticed already, I'm somewhat of a hydrogen guy. A lot of people might say I'm the crazy hydrogen guy in the room. I've been doing this for about 17 years, and I've seen the market really evolve in a very interesting way. And recently, in the last couple of years, hydrogen has become a hot topic in the environmental community. Thanks to a lot of incentives from the federal government to progress in the industry and to some new relationships and partnerships that are developing in between hydrogen producing nations. So I'm particularly excited tonight to talk to this panel. Particularly excited to introduce the concept of a new maritime and port-related hydrogen education center that we're developing here at the AltaSea campus. So I'll invite you all to kind of, after the panel discussion, to take a look at some of the renderings, to engage some of the EIN staff about the hydrogen education center that we're building here. It's essentially an incubator, an opportunity for technology display, and really an opportunity to help develop workforce training programs and to bring the hydrogen community together under one roof. And I think one of the ways to do that really most interests me is through partnerships with groups like the Japan Hydrogen Forum. So before we jump into the panel discussion, I'd like to invite a good friend of mine and a colleague that I have a tremendous amount of respect for to talk to us a little bit about this newly formed Japan Hydrogen Forum. And excuse me, if the folks in the back could please quiet down and come join us. I think you'll really be fascinated to learn about this new forum, and it'll really highlight the role of some of the partner companies that are displaying their deck here. All right, this is Pat Wilson, our leader for the
So let me share some what I prepared. No, it's now. Anyway, I want to leave this one. So that works. Okay. Yep.
We've got the slides here.
Okay. Is somebody? Yep. Thank you. Okay. Really, I'm grateful and excited to have this opportunity among the very motivated decarbonization challenging group. Thank you very much. My name is Takio Ko. I worked for Toyota hydrogen fuel cell development many years. Especially in the last several years, I was able to work on the current Toyota ongoing Class 8 truck FC powertrain application development. And I'm quite excited that you are able to touch and see the actual truck over there, one of the prototype today. And after I retired Toyota, which is last year, I'm now chairing Japan Hydrogen Forum and or JH2F. This is something I'd like to introduce to you now. And we support the decarbonization goal of the US government by expanding hydrogen energy with the best practice of Japanese firm under the US-Japan Climate Partnership and Clean Hydrogen Partnership. So our goal is to serve as the leading voice in information pool and implementation solutions repository of the hydrogen business. And we will basically monitor and disseminate information on the latest technology development and best practice of Japanese firm and facilitate access to the information on policy development and provide information on the state-of-the-art integrated hydrogen solutions. And we will support the hosting and delegation from federal, state, and local government and provide business matching opportunity for the US companies. And next slide, please. As you can see, the company's logo on the left side of the corner. We are a group of 24 Japanese affiliate US local companies and who has strong hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cell product and business experience, plus financial group who is interested in supporting decarbonization businesses. In Japan External Trade Organization, or JETRO, and Consulate General of Japan are critical supporters. And our current focus areas where we want to bring our business experience in this country are City of Lancaster, who declares to be the first hydrogen city in the US. And I know the Mayor of Paris is here to support us today. In Port of Los Angeles and Port of Long Beach, where there is a clear goal of 100% zero emission by 2030. I believe our joint activities with this AltaSea will lead the goal. And we are also working with ILW as well. I believe that Mr. Mark Josic and ILW local team is here to support us too. And Houston is also one of other areas that we executed the MOU last year, but of course not needed. And next slide, please. So those are some of the product that our business experience. And as you can see, we have vertical chain of all hydrogen business in our group. There are expert companies of hydrogen generations, delivery and dispensing, transportation, propelling system, auto decarbonization, power and heat generation, and storage system, and financial. Together, we do and we will really create a sustainable hydrogen society. And next slide, please. Yep. So today, Iwatani Corporation of America and Toyota Motor North America, American Honda Motor Company, and Choshu Industry Corporation of America, Mitsui and Company, Mitsui E&S, and NYK Line, Toyota Tsusho America, are able to exhibit their product, hydrogen business product, and over panels to explain it. So I wish you all can stop by those companies' booth, and as you can see, all of them, and please understand what we are, and we will not disappoint you. Thank you very much.
So very excited about the work that the Japan Hydrogen Forum is doing, and this is really a remarkable accomplishment to bring 25 companies that could ostensibly be seen as competitors in their home market here to North America to actually collaborate to build out this ecosystem for hydrogen technologies. It's quite remarkable the speed that the group has come together, the work that they've done, even to help kind of bring everyone's technology together here this evening has been quite remarkable. And we're very excited to partner with the Japan Hydrogen Forum, and we're very excited to host you here at the new Hydrogen Education Center that we're developing here at AltaSea. So more on that in just a few moments. In the interim, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our hydrogen panel. We really have kind of an all-star panel here. So I'll introduce everyone very briefly, and then they'll take the mic. A couple of folks have a presentation, but we've really kind of branched out across the hydrogen spectrum, much like we did with the carbon management panel. So we've got Jay Joseph from North American Honda, we've got Yuri Friedman from SoCal Gas, Frank Wallach, an industry veteran from the Fuel Cell Hydrogen Energy Association, and Tak Yokoson, who you guys just met. So with that said, I would like to introduce, I think we have, Tak is coming back up here to present a little bit about his work here. Wearing different hats today.
Let's wear the different hats. Let me do this again. Doesn't it? Perfect. So could you please show some slide, please? Yep, thank you. So basically, Brian really asked me to bring something that really activate this panel discussion. So I would like to talk about some hydrogen playground. And I'm not going to bring up anything new or surprising. I'm not surprise you anything, but hope this review will kind of activate our discussion. So this is a CO2 monitor. And one of my tools that really encouraged me to work hard on decarbonization every day. It says 430 ppm. 430 ppm, which you are basically witnessing the highest CO2 level of the planet known history in this very moment. You are breathing this. And this is something I really want to kind of feel that this environmental, everything that we're breathing now is something we need to work on. So could you please set the next page, please? So this is basically the famous CO2 chart from NOAA. Despite the planet was able to keep the CO2 level less than 300 ppm during the last 1 million years, we are facing that almost 100 ppm exactly here increase during the last 70 years, which kind of exactly align my lifetime, and therefore I have no room to excuse that responsibility. And according to some studies, the increased CO2 level 100 ppm, the planet gained about 700 billion tons of CO2. And the entire, as you can see, the entire California light-duty vehicles, which is about 30 million of them, emit total of 0.15 billion tons of CO2 a year, which is 0.02 ppm worth. So you can really imagine how the 700 billion tons of CO2 or 100 ppm is enormous numbers. That's something we need to feel this, to make this number here. And next slide, please. So while I have worked at the Toyota besides hydrogen fuel cell, I also had a chance to work on the first Prius HV, and plug-in Prius, and LiPo battery with the Tesla. And through my experience, I deeply believe it is not the battery or hydrogen. We need all the technologies together to reduce the carbon. Especially, it is critically important to be aligned with the market acceptance, such as affordability or appropriate infrastructure. Next slide, please. This chart shows one of the possibilities of the scenario of battery EV penetration in this California state. I just picked the light-duty segment only, and applying that new sales will be a zero emission in 2035. Then assume 70% of them are battery EV, and apply 5% of turnover. And it says that by 2050, this state will be 100% vehicle to be zero emission, which is good. But even if assuming only 70% of those are battery EV, the rough study shows that we need 80 terawatt hour per year extra grid energy for vehicle charging, just for light duty. And next slide, please. Thank you. So what that number means, to create 80 terawatt hour per year extra electricity, we need almost 5 more Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. And even if we can get such a humongous extra energy from somewhere, I believe that our current grid does not really have extra room to support average 30% more load. And it is quite a challenge to support the peak load for sure. And if I see the matter from the another aspect, 80 terawatt ton per year creates almost 4 teratons of hydrogen demand. That is, if hydrogen is seen to generate that electricity energy. So this is just one of the many examples. So what I like to say is, next page please, this is the last page. Basically, there is a room for hydrogen to support grid. It's the energy coexist, and let's really accelerate maximizing hydrogen benefit and optimize hydrogen and grid energy supply and demand. That is something we can do and make it happen. Thank you very much.
So a lot of times when I'm engaging folks that are just starting to learn about the hydrogen ecosystem for the first time, a lot of times they really think about light-duty transportation because they're seeing the cars on the road. In fact, we have over 14,000 light-duty fuel cell electric vehicles on the roads here in California. But what I think really helps highlight the role of hydrogen in the overall energy system is to kind of look at it like a funnel, to look at grid stabilization, renewable energy storage, which as Tak just described is an absolutely massive scale for the need for hydrogen here in the state. And then to look at applications like industrial decarbonization and then mobility. And so I think when you can kind of look at these various applications for hydrogen, you start to realize that this isn't just an experiment in the transportation sector. This is really the cornerstone of the new energy economy. And so I'm really, happy that we have folks on the panel that are representing different aspects of the hydrogen ecosystem. So with that said, I'm particularly excited today to introduce Yuri Friedman with SoCalGas, who's a friend and colleague. One of the most compelling speakers I've met in this sector. Yuri, I'd like to invite you to come up here and tell us a little bit about the role that you're playing with the utilities in the intersection of hydrogen.
Thank you, Brian. No pressure. Let's see. I think this is the thing of the slides. Before I launch into my slides, and I promise I have a short, really brief slide deck, I just wanted to reflect and follow up on what Brian mentioned right now. I think I try not to lose an opportunity to step back sometimes and reflect on the fact that we have a truly remarkable moment. I think when I say we, I mean the hydrogen crowd, which I think is what we see here. We really are witnessing and working on introduction of a new major component into the global energy mix. And when I think of how many times that can happen in the course of one's career, at least for me, not that many. Yeah. Just because there are so few elements in the mix, and they change one after another. They have been changing for a long time. We're not going through the first energy transition, but they're changing. The change takes a long time. And so this change is something which I personally cherish, and I think I'm very fortunate and privileged to work on this with many of you in the private sector, in the public sector, including the state, the federal, the city, the port of Los Angeles, and many other public sector stakeholders, and academia, because innovation is going to be critical to scaling up this commodity, to making sure that it has these three magical attributes that we're all looking for. Someone said it's easy to get 2 out of 3. It's really hard to get 3 out of 3. These 3 are clean, reliable, and affordable. We know hydrogen can be clean. Hydrogen can be clean if we make it with electrolysis, or if we make it with natural gas and sequester carbon dioxide. We know that hydrogen can be reliable. In fact, we in the molecule business at SoCalGas know that reliability and resiliency is something which we'll need more in years and decades ahead because of the increasing impact of climate change, but also because of something which I think we need to be very mindful of, and that's the global need for resiliency, and that's the energy security, which, as our President, Marion Brown, repeats oftentimes, is national security. And I don't think that any part of the world today is immune from what's going on in Europe when there's a major war, and energy is a major factor in that war. Energy will stay with us for a long time, and that security is something where hydrogen can make a profound impact. And in that context, I also think that another aspect of what we are doing is the global effort. And it's really encouraging to see my colleagues in Japan taking such profound steps toward that for several decades now. And now I think we start to see them bearing fruit worldwide. Look around North America, look around Latin America, Europe, Asia, China, Korea, Japan, Australia. It really is a truly global momentum, which many people, including Terry and Brian, have been tirelessly working toward for many decades. We see this bearing fruit, and I just invite all of us to reflect on this, because again, I think this is truly a unique opportunity for all of us. With that, admitted a long preamble, and let me go through the slides really quickly. Let's go to the next slide, please. Quick introduction for SoCalGas. We've been in the business for a long time, more than 150 years. That's probably known. What is not known is that the majority of the time we actually have been shipping gas, which had about 50% hydrogen, town gas. In fact, we started to ship natural gas probably just several decades ago. So that's part of the reason, on the one, why we at SoCalGas are really excited about the opportunity to facilitate the introduction of this new commodity into the mix. Because pipeline and delivery at scale is critical to having the low cost to the consumer. Production is very important, and again, it's encouraging to see scientists, technologists working on this, including UCLA and other UC campuses. Distribution is equally key. You need to get distribution in place in order to get low-cost molecule to the customer. And we are very excited that we can do our part working on that. Let's go to the next slide. We conducted a study a couple of years ago to analyze what it would take for the state of California to get to carbon neutrality. There is no surprise that getting to carbon neutrality in the most reliable, resilient, and most cost-effective way is going to involve green electrons and green molecules working together. It makes intuitive sense. And by the way, today molecules provide about 80% of global energy needs. As we think about that, and we think about the resilient state of California with low carbon footprint, with zero carbon footprint eventually, we need to pay at least as much attention to molecules as we do to electrons, and we see this change taking hold, but we should do more of that. Next slide, please. The utilities can play a very important role, not just in scaling up delivery of hydrogen, but doing this in a compressed time frame that we have. And there is no one-size-fits-all solution. We think there's a role for dedicated infrastructure, such as the project we're developing, the large green hydrogen pipeline project, Angeles Link. There also is a role for blending, which can take place significantly faster and can be done safely and reliably. As far as the demand sectors, I think we all know right now that there are some sectors which are really custom-made for adoption of hydrogen. I think we in California know that, especially here in the port, heavy-duty transportation is one of those sectors which has tremendous promise. It also, I think, importantly has not just the promise of mitigating greenhouse gas emissions, but it has the promise of addressing a very important issue of our times, and that's the issue of environmental justice. There's no secret that diesel trucks impact the most vulnerable of us the most. Changing that to hydrogen and eliminating the emissions of particulate matter and other air pollutants would be a major step in accomplishing environmental justice, something which we do as a state, I think, at scale, and soon power generation, industrial manufacturing, and other sectors are ready to accept it, and we see these green shoots of this effort worldwide. Next slide, please. A couple of quick words about our research development demonstration program. We do believe that research and innovation is very important in finding these technologies which are going to get us to scale to low cost. And we work on this in our, what we call RD&D, Research Development Demonstration program across the value chain. We are happy to support research on hydrogen production, including research by UCLA scientists. We are happy to support efforts on the end-use applications across the end-use sectors, marine, rail, buses, and others. And we also are excited about the opportunities to explore transportation of hydrogen in natural gas pipelines by a variety of technologies, again, making sure that it's going to be done safely and reliably. Overall, we think that this is the time where all of us should work together, and I think the list would be incomplete without mentioning the very important stakeholders, which is the environmental community. I think we all need to be on the same side of the table. It's hard enough to build infrastructure when we are all on the same side of the table. We need to get aligned. We need to have a sense of shared mission, and then we can do it. But we need to all work together on that. With that, thank you all for your attention. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
I'd now like to introduce Jay Joseph from Honda. I understand that Honda had some very exciting announcements in the last week or so. We have some really unique new Honda technology here tonight. I, for one, am very excited to hear about it. Please come on up and tell us about it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian. And I've got a couple, first slide there. Thank you. So, what you've heard from TAC and from Yuri and what you've been hearing really all night is how important it is to get hydrogen to scale. And that means not just the technological innovation, but business innovation. So I'm really happy to share with you what Brian just explained, an update on our hydrogen business. As Brian said, I'm Jay Joseph. I'm the Vice President of our CASE and Energy Business Unit. For those of you who don't know, CASE stands for Connected, Autonomous, Shared, and Electrified. But tonight I'm focused more on our renewable energy portion of our business unit. Next slide, please. So of course, Honda is a mobility company that offers a wide variety of products ranging from automobiles and passenger cars to power equipment. Combining all of these mobility products, Honda is by far the largest power unit manufacturer in the world. As you see here, more than 30 million units per year, ranging from single-cylinder 25cc power units to 3.7-liter V6 turbo power units, including the Honda HF120 turbofan jet engine, not to mention championship-winning Formula One, IndyCar, sports car, and motorcycle power units. But since our founding, we've been and through the wide array of power units that we've created, Honda has always been contributing to the advancement of mobility and people's daily lives by providing the power that supports people around the world who are trying to do things by their own initiative. Next slide, please. As society continues to change, at Honda, we believe there are two values that Honda must continue to provide. One, to eliminate our environmental impact, and it's no longer about reducing, but it's now about elimination. And two, to realize safety, protecting precious human lives. Based on these beliefs, we're making comprehensive efforts in our environmental and safety initiatives. For the environment, we strive to realize carbon neutrality for all of our customers and society through all of our products and corporate activities by 2050. Next slide, please. To fulfill that vision, Honda has set out to achieve a circular or resource recycling society that aims for zero environmental impact, which is necessary for people to live on Earth in a sustainable manner. To this end, Honda is focusing on carbon neutrality, clean energy, and resource circulation as the three pillars of our initiatives, or what we call triple action to zero. Next slide, please. As we've been explaining over the past year, we're working to electrify our automobile and motorcycle products. With our swappable battery, the Honda Mobile Power Pack, or MPP, we're broadening the range of easy-to-use electrified mobility and other products by expanding the use of renewable energy by enabling infrastructure-linked smart power operations while charging MPPs, as one example. Honda's been developing hydrogen technologies in fuel cell vehicles for more than 30 years, through which we've amassed a lot of know-how related to fuel cell technologies. Honda sees hydrogen as one of the high-potential energy carriers of the future, along with electricity, of course, or as Yuri put it, molecules and electrons. Today, we'll review our technological advancements that we've made, mainly to the fuel cell system itself, as well as the challenges we're taking on to expand our business by applying our fuel cell system to a variety of products. Next slide, please. The hydrogen cycle starts with renewable energy and consists of three phases: generate, store and transport, and use. With the use of electrolysis technology, electricity derived from renewable energy sources can be converted into green hydrogen. This absorbs the impact of fluctuations in power generation and demand due to seasonality and weather conditions. That green hydrogen can be safely transported by land, sea, and pipeline. By expanding the range of applications that use our fuel cell system, the core of Honda Hydrogen technology, Honda wants to stimulate demand for hydrogen and facilitate decarbonization of society through the use of hydrogen, that final stage. To make the use of hydrogen convenient for customers, Honda will strengthen collaboration and coordination with various companies and work toward establishment of hydrogen ecosystems, which will serve as one-stop solution providers of all related services, including hydrogen supply. Next slide, please. Recognizing the great potential of hydrogen, Honda began working on the application of fuel cell technologies for passenger vehicles ahead of other automakers in the second half of the 1990s, already with an eye toward future commercialization. We've continued developing and delivering FCEVs since then, and recently announced that our next generation FCEV will go on sale about a year from now. You can see a CRV that suggests the size and shape and format of that vehicle right back here in the middle of this room. Next slide, please. Starting with FCEVs, this next generation fuel cell system will be used in a variety of applications around the world. Because hydrogen can be stored and transported with high energy density and can be filled in a short time, it's more suitable for large mobility vehicles with high operating rates, power sources for large infrastructure, and mobility vehicles that need to be filled with energy in a short period of time. Still a challenge for batteries. Honda will increase the number of fuel cell systems we offer in response to the range of applications, thereby supporting commercial vehicles, megawatt-class stationary power sources, and so on. Next slide, please. We've also started advanced research on the use of fuel cells in space as a future application. Honda has reached an R&D agreement with the Japanese Government Space Administration, JAXA, on a circulating renewable energy system to supply electricity to human habitations during manned lunar exploration. And by advancing technological themes such as water and energy circulation in space, Honda will further refine our core technologies. That refinement of our core technologies will further expand the fields in which hydrogen fuel cells can contribute to society. Next slide, please. We target sales of 2,000 units per year for our next generation fuel cell system, and you can see a mock-up of it back here next to that CRV. In 2030, we'll further evolve this system to a future generation and expand the sales to about 60,000 units per year, which we expect to grow to several 100,000 units per year by the end of the 2030s, or by the year 2030. Honda's policy for contributing to decarbonization and the development and expansion of fuel cell systems is to expand the solutions for the decarbonization of logistics, starting with trucks, and for the decarbonization of electricity, starting with power supply facilities, toward our goal of decarbonizing human mobility, which has been the focus of FCEVs all along. Next slide, please. Now, a little bit of an update on our business approach. So next is the stationary power station, which is expected to follow commercial applications in commercial vehicles in widespread use. Honda will also take on the challenge of making the power generation domain cleaner as an application in addition to mobility. By connecting dozens of fuel cell systems, we'll make it possible to handle megawatt-class power generation. Now, in terms of business continuity planning, we're considering the use of fuel cell systems first as emergency power sources or backup power sources, the importance of which has been increasing in recent years. In North America, a 500 kilowatt stationary power supply that reuses the fuel cell of the Clarity fuel cell will be installed on the premises of our U.S. subsidiary, American Honda Motor Company, and my employer, just north of us here in Torrance. And we'll begin demonstration operations as an emergency backup power source of our data center late this month. After that, we'll apply our system to factories and our data centers at Honda's locations globally, thereby reducing our own generation greenhouse gas emissions. So these are, next slide please. And go ahead and advance that. Thank you. These are Honda's hydrogen initiatives aimed at carbon neutrality. As the world's largest engine supplier, Honda has always taken seriously the need to reduce and ultimately to eliminate CO2 emissions as a challenge that must be met at all costs. We began basic research on fuel cells in the late 90s and have since been involved in the research and development of fuel cell vehicles. Now, we're actively contributing to the carbon neutralization of society by utilizing fuel cell technology in a wide variety of applications. To this end, Honda believes that it must not be restricted to a standalone approach, but must expand our circle of friends around hydrogen as quickly and as widely as possible. So for those of you in the room, that means we're open to partnerships and looking for new applications and new approaches. Together with our partners in various fields to share these aspirations, we hope to realize a carbon-free society. So thank you for your time today, and I look forward to the discussion.
All right, so we've heard talk about kind of the larger role of hydrogen in the energy system, and then Yuri kind of honed in on that and started to mention a little bit about some of the national security implications, kind of the relationship between molecules and electrons, and Jay has kind of broken down not only the transportation sector for us, but how we might be able to establish stationary power generation for emergencies, for microgrids, which is something that I'm particularly excited about the role of hydrogen fuel cells in microgrids as we start to kind of begin to build our own energy resilience within communities as large as Los Angeles. So the one thing that we haven't talked about is the role of hydrogen in the policy community, the relationship between policy and hydrogen. This is something that's near and dear to me, certainly following in Terry's footsteps, who really kind of laid the foundation for these policy mechanisms in California, and then that clearly is spread around the United States. So right now there's a renewed excitement about hydrogen, thanks largely to the policy community. So I'd like to invite Frank Wallach as the CEO of the Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Energy Association, also the host of the Fuel Cell Seminar, the big expo, the seminar that's coming up in Long Beach starting tomorrow, which I know a lot of my friends and colleagues will be joining. I'd like to ask Frank to say some words about your work at FACHIA, where you're optimistic about some of the new policy mechanisms, and frankly just to bring us an update from DC. We're a little bit isolated out here in California, so we'd love to hear directly from you what's going on in DC and about some of the excitement there.
Well, thank you, Brian. I want to thank you and Terry for inviting me up here today to be part of the panel and to give a few comments. As Brian mentioned, I'm the CEO and President of the Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Energy Association. We are based in Washington, and we are the Industry Association for Hydrogen and Fuel Cells here in the United States. Terry and Brian talked about longevity when they spoke, and I can attest to that. Our association has been advocating for fuel cells and hydrogen for over 30 years. I can also say for many of those years, it was very lonely advocacy and missionary work. I can also say that it's not lonely any longer. Brian commented about the conferences going on across the harbor, and that conference has been going on for over 50 years, and by all measurements, it is going to be the largest conference of all that we've had, with over 1,000 attendees, exhibits, and unfortunately we had to turn people away. We had so much enthusiasm for it. What I want to comment on is there's really three interesting comparisons between what's going on across the harbor and here. One is the renewed interest at all levels for hydrogen and its ability to be a contributor to decarbonization. Clearly, that is a movement that's growing in the United States, that's growing across the world. The second thing I'd like to bring up is the degree to which innovation is being used as a means to achieve some of that decarbonization. We'll see it in the conference, I see it here today, and innovation is going to be the core by which we get ourselves out of some of our technological challenges that led us into a highly carbonized society and will help us get through to a decarbonized society. And I think the third thing to consider is also the fact that California is a very unique place to be an incubator. People come to California to see the opportunity for networking, they see the diversity of activities, they see the innovation, and I'm really pleased that our conference is in California alongside AltaSea, just across the port. There are two other items I'd like to raise here that I see this around the country, I see it in policy circles, I see it in our members, that there is a very sobering and a very respectful sense of the challenge ahead of us to help decarbonize the way we operate and the role in which hydrogen can play in that decarbonization. I see that challenge being matched by an enormous degree of optimism. Our policymakers have put together new laws, new funding, new stimulus, and we see this across the world. I see optimism in all the people in our association, all of those companies looking to put new products to work, and I clearly see it in this room, and I see it in the mission of AltaSea. So Brian, thank you very much for this, and I look forward to some questions.
Thank you very much. So, we talked a little bit about scale in the last panel. It's come up a little bit here. We've really been able to kind of take a stroll through some of the various hydrogen applications and the reason for optimism among our panel here. And I'd like to just ask kind of broadly the panel, what do you think are the near-term obstacles to scale, or more importantly, ways that we can overcome those obstacles? So, we really need to get to the point where the cost of hydrogen comes down. What I think a lot of us, kind of overlook is that, the cost of actually producing hydrogen is relatively low or competitive at this point. It's really the distribution of hydrogen that is somewhat challenging and expensive. So, that's one area where I think, coming up with scale might help make the hydrogen economy a little more achievable. But I'd like to just broadly pose this question to the panel. Where do you see some opportunities in terms of scale, and how can that help bridge some of these various applications together? So I don't know if one of you guys wants to jump in first.
Okay. Let me jump in and answer. Maybe the viewpoint was a little bit different, maybe a little bit not matching what you're expecting. But since I don't know so much about policy or big picture, you did so much. My experience was always kind of really narrow focused technology area. So from my limited experience, really one of the things that I went through was when I built and worked together with the Class A truck application. Until actually truck moved, no one believes, and not just only outside, but pretty much entire. People are just doubting if it works. And once it works, then people start thinking that, wow, great, this is better, this is the direction we need to go. Same things I see that the Toyota Tsusho start showing the first pilot top 100 last month. And as soon as that moving, I start hearing everybody saying, we need this, we need this, we need this. So really my view was, we're ready, many things are ready, but people are not ready to really jump in. So we need some kind of really strong incubator, the reality, the real things that people can see, touch something, will basically change the world. That's through my experience. So not so much policy, not so much money. I really want to see that let's make something happen. Then people will see what is happening.
Well, Tak, I really appreciate your enthusiasm, and I think that's really a softball for me to talk about the incubator that we're building here at AltaSea with the Hydrogen Education Center, focusing on port applications and maritime applications.
Coal or oil or gas, look at their ramp curves. It took 50, 60, up to 100 years for them to get to scale. There's a reason for that. The reason for that is that it's hard. And it's hard for the end-use manufacturers to take risks building factories. It's hard for producers to build gigawatt-sized plants and put their money at risk. And it's hard for people like us to build projects that connect supply and demand, because it just takes a long time to build large assets. All of which is to say, I do think that the policy support, it was critical to get us to this stage, to get us the economic incentives, but you do need this continuous support to make sure that assets actually get built. And that entails the federal level support, which I think we have. It also very importantly entails state level support, because projects can get sanctioned or support at the federal level, they get cited and built at the local level. They do need to come to terms with local, sometimes opposition. And that needs to be resolved. It's intensely local problem, and we need to work on that together to make sure that, again, like I said before, we all are trying to do the same thing, which is, I think, something we sometimes miss in the debate, I'll be honest with you. And I think that that sense of shared mission is what we need to work on.
All right, thank you very much. And, one point that I took away from that is it's really hard to compete with the smell of warm food wafting in here. So I think I'll keep the questions to a minimum. It seems like, I don't know, Jay, if you had a comment there, but...
I'll keep it somewhat brief, but I think what's interesting about the moment that we're in right now is that we're at a point of changing our relationship with energy as inhabitants of the earth, as consumers of mobility, as consumers of energy. We're at a point of changing our relationship with energy. We talk about this a lot, both with electrification and with hydrogen, because those inflection points, those change points, offer opportunities for innovation, offer opportunities for new businesses, for new jobs. You know, we all understand the importance of energy independence, and we think we're facing that now. Of course, you know, we all know change takes a really long time, but then when it happens quickly. I think we're optimistic, as Frank pointed out, because we recognize that we might be approaching that inflection point, both for electrification and for hydrogen, which are both paths to decarbonization. So that is exciting, and that gives us all a lot of hope, not just in our lifetimes, but the lifetimes beyond that. And that's a big deal. I would be remiss if I didn't share something that happened at the breakfast table this morning. So we were sitting down with my kids and we were talking about what we're doing today. Of course, they were going to school. I've got 2 teenagers. One of them still loves us. And my son asked what I was doing today, and I said, well, I'm going to a conference to talk about hydrogen this afternoon. And he said, there are conferences for hydrogen? And I said, well, yeah, we're talking about, he's 13, we're talking about, what happens when we're not all driving around in cars with gasoline. And he's very excited about EVs, and he wants to see that change. But I was thinking about that I was thinking about our conversation on the whole drive today. And I had this thought, I shared this with a colleague earlier, that, yeah, we have a conference to talk about hydrogen. And this is a room full of people who are either personally invested or working for companies that are financially invested, technologically invested in that transition of energy, changing our relationship with energy. And I thought, well, usually when we have these conversations, we're talking to people who don't know the first thing about the periodic table. So it's exciting to be able to talk to an audience that wants this change.
It's a great comment. It seems like it's an overnight success after 25 years, right? Frank, did I see you teeing up a comment there?
I'll make a brief closing comment on this, but one thing to consider in your comment about scale is that scale is relative. It depends on where you start and where you're going. The challenges are enormous, but it's also good to remember that we're starting at a level where many of the technologies have been embedded. We're in 4th, 5th generations of work. There's a lot of innovation that's already been started. We're not starting from ground zero. That's important to remember. So we've got to move fast, but we're not starting from ground zero.
I think that's a great way to close out the questions for the panel here. I can sit up here and ask you guys questions all night, but I think I'll let you loose and let the audience actually ask you some questions, and everyone will be able to grab a bite to eat as well. So I'd like to thank the panel, and we have one more speaker coming up, so I'd like to thank the panel very much.